Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games, and in this video we're going to have a look at my top 20 picks for investment purposes from the upcoming set, Double Masters. Man, there's a lot of great cards in this set and a lot of great financial opportunities. So we're going to break the picks down by rarity, and I'm going to give you 5 picks in each of the different rarities. Now keep in mind, all of the picks I give you guys in this video are long-term investments, and by long-term I mean at least a year, but many of them are going to be in the sort of 2 to 4 year range before they fully recover after they bottom out, especially the commons and uncommons. There's going to be a lot of double masters opened, and a lot of this stuff is going to just be flooding the market. I expect the prices, especially on the commons and uncommons, to really bottom out. So let's dive right in, and we're going to start with the common rarity with the Urza lands. Now, obviously, the Urza lands are in huge demand for the various Tron decks, mostly in the modern format, but they do see a little bit of play in things like Commander. Now, obviously, this $2 price is not the investment price. So what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to give you my target price. And this is the price where I start becoming an investor on these cards. And a lot of this stuff, especially in the commons and uncommon slot, my target on them is going to be like 25 cents. There's going to be a ton of this stuff entering the market, like I mentioned, so I expect the prices to really bottom out on these cards. Now, the Urza lands are going to take a long time to recover. The modern format is basically in the toilet right now, although I do want to say that modern has definitely been picking up in my store. It's becoming one of the more popular formats. People are sort of gravitating back to modern as they're coming back and being able to play in person in store. So I have had a lot of great turnouts for modern, which is definitely a great sign for the format. My target price on all of the Urza lands is around 25 cents. If I can get them in the 25 to sort of 50-cent range, I'm happy with that. Like I said, it's going to be taking a long time for these to recover. Even if they get only up to the dollar range, you've made 4 times or 2 times your money. So great investments around 25 cents. Now, the one thing you do want to definitely take note on with these Urza lands is the foils. Now, currently the foils are going for in that sort of $10 to $15 range, which is pretty extravagant considering that there will probably be a lot of these foils entering the market. And then, of course, we also have the box topper versions of these, and those will likely be in higher demand. But Urza lands were never really available as foils except in 8th and 9th edition. The original printings didn't have foils back in those days. So it's been very difficult to get your hands on foil copies of Urza lands if you're the kind of person that likes to foil out your deck. And a foiled out Tron deck is a sight to behold. Let me tell you, I've seen and played against plenty of foiled out Tron decks. So they are definitely a prized possession. And people do seek out the foils on these Urza lands. So if you can manage to get those when they bottom out around the sort of $2 to $5 range, I think that's a great price to be picking up those, and also a great future investment. Up next, we have Ancient Stirrings. This is one I really debated about whether putting on the list. It's kind of one I don't really like. They've been reprinting Ancient Stirrings a lot. It's always been kind of in the common slot, so we've been seeing a lot of them flood the market. I mean, this card used to be a $4 or $5 card, but then it came in Masters 25 in the common slot, and now we have it again in common in Double Masters. So I'm not super excited about Ancient Stirrings, but there's not a lot of great choices in the common slot. The only other one that I would have maybe considered instead of Ancient Stirrings would be a braid. A braid gets, and I guess you can kind of consider that a bonus, a braid gets a lot of play, especially as sideboard tech in formats like Modern and Pioneer. So a braid at 25 cents is definitely a great pickup as well. But Ancient Stirrings, I'm not going to be a purchaser of this card for investment purposes unless it comes down below 25 cents for sure. Because I think of Ancient Stirrings, it probably will recover to the $1 to $1.50 range, so picking them up for a quarter should net you good returns. Up next in the common slot, we have Ever-Flowing Chalice, currently valued around $1, and again, my target on something like this is 25 cents or under. Not really a cross-format card, doesn't really see play in many other formats. I mean, there is the odd modern Tron deck that might throw 1 or 2 copies in there, but this is a huge Commander staple for sure. Definitely a really awesome mana rock for Commander. It appears in all kinds of Commander decks, has all kinds of Commander reprints. This card usually sits in the $1 to $2 range, so picking it up for a quarter is a great bargain. Now, I really struggled with deciding on whether or not Chromatic Star would be my number one pick for the common slot from Double Masters. It was really a toss up between this one and the one I finally decided on. So, Chromatic Star, I think, is a great opportunity. We haven't seen a reprint on this for a long time. It mostly gets play pretty much only in Tron decks and various sort of popper decks. So, that's what, and it doesn't see a ton of commander play, and that's what kind of made it decide for me to be my number two pick. Still, Chromatic Star is a fantastic pickup at anywhere under 50 cents for future investment. And our big winner for the common slot in Double Masters is Expedition Map. The reason why I chose this to be number one is because of all of the cross-format play that this card gets. I mean, obviously, it's a huge staple in Modern. We do see it in Pauper, some Legacy decks, but it also gets play in Commander, which is really important. So there should be a high demand, and there always has been a high demand for Expedition Maps going down the road. My target for this card is in the 50 to 75 cent range. As soon as that thing drops below 75 cents, I'm going to buy as many of these as I can get my hands on. All right, let's move right along to the uncommon slot for Double Masters, and there is a lot of great uncommon cards in this set. I'm really happy that they put some awesome stuff, some much needed reprints in the uncommon slot, because that's been some of the issues with some of the master sets from the past. There's really just been a lot of chaff in the common and uncommon. But if you open some of these cards that we're going to mention here, as well as other things like Fatal Push, I mean, you're not really unhappy to get those cards. So let's look at our number 5 uncommon, and that would be Pongify. This card gets a lot of play in Commander for sure. It's a great way to get rid of a commander or some sort of indestructible, annoying thing like an Avacyn or something like that. Pongify's always had a ton of value, usually in the $6 to sort of $7 range. So picking them up under $2 is a great deal. And my target on this card is going to be 50 cents. I think there's going to be a ton of these enter the market. I think the price on this is going to dive. And I'm really happy to pick up as many Pongifys as I can get in the sort of $50 to $1 range. And my number 4 winner from the uncommon slot would be Mishra's Bauble. Even at $4, this is a great pickup considering where the prices are on all of the other copies of Mishra's Bauble. Now, if this sort of follows the train that it did with Iconic Masters, this card really bottomed out. It hit around 50 cents, and anywhere in the sort of 50 cents to $1 range is my target for Mishra's Bauble. It will definitely recover down the road, gets played in a lot of different formats, including Legacy, Modern, and even Commander. So Mishra's Bauble's a great investment at under $1. In the number 3 spot, we have Basalt Monolith. It's currently valued at $2.75, and this actually is a decent price for this card. Although, again, I think this is probably going to dip below $1, and that's where I really start picking up a bunch of these. Basalt Monolith has got a lot of attention lately with some of these new commanders that come out and basically go infinite with it. It's had a lot of reprintings, but even with all of these reprintings, the thing's still in the $6 to $10 range. So picking these up for in the $2 to $1 range is definitely a good future investment. Now, our number 2 winner unquestionably is Lightning Greaves. They could print this card 1,000 times, and there's always going to be a demand for it. If we head over to EDH Rec, we can see it appears in 30% of Commander decks, and the reality is that number's probably actually higher. And the few decks that it doesn't appear in are probably because the owners of those decks don't have a copy. There's very few reasons why you wouldn't run something like Lightning Greaves in Commander. Excellent way to protect your commander and give them haste, or any other creature for that matter. So that's obviously why we have such massive demand in Commander for this card. Card's always sitting in the sort of $6 to $7 range, so picking them up for under $3 is my target price for this card. And our big winner in the uncommon slot is Oubliette. This card, I would have loved to have this card in my collection, but they have been really difficult to get your hands on. The only printing was the original printing in Arabian Nights, and they carried a lot of value for the printing in those sets. They've recently errated Oubliette to simplify it by basically saying when it enters the battlefield, you target a creature and that creature phases out until Oubliette leaves the battlefield. Of note, this is a fantastic way to deal with a commander. Phasing out is not the same as exiled, so when a commander gets phased out, it remains phased out until it can phase back in. So having Oubliette on the battlefield means essentially you can deal with someone's commander until they actually remove Oubliette. I think this card is going to see a lot more commander play now that it is much more available. So my target on this card is actually in the $2 range. If you can pick this card up for $2 or less, I think that this is a fantastic future investment, and I think there's going to be a lot more demand for this card, especially down the road now that the availability is much higher. All right, let's get to some of the good stuff. I think most of the financial opportunity from Double Masters is actually going to come from the rare slot. There's a lot of great cards in here, especially for Commander. And since Commander is a singleton format, a lot of these cards are just basically going to flood the market and take a little while to get absorbed into the market. So they should really bottom out and create a lot of great future financial opportunity. So let's dive right in, and we're going to start right here with Maze of Ith. Awesome Commander card. This card usually sits in the $20 to $30 range, so being able to pick these up south of $8 is a fantastic deal. Up next, we have Academy Ruins, another huge commander card. Now, this card does get some play cross-format in things like various modern decks and legacy as well. Card usually sits in the $25 to $30 range, so being able to pick these up for my target price of $8 is a great deal. And our number 3 winner is Exploration. There has never, ever been enough of this card. It's always been printed at Rare, and the last printing was quite a while ago at Conspiracy. And look at that price, $38, $60 for the original Urza Saga printing. So being able to pick this up for my target price of $12 is where you want to be at. And my number 2 choice for the rare slot is a no-brainer. Walking Ballista is an absolute gem to have in this set. I'm so happy to see another reprint of Walking Ballista. It's another card we just can't get enough of. Huge demand, obviously, in Modern and Pioneer, also in Commander, so having these sort of cross-format cards bodes well for future investments. And my target on this is one I don't think will drop a whole lot because there's a lot of people waiting to get their hands on Walking Ballistas. So if you can get this anywhere in the $15 to even $17 range, you're looking good. And our number 1 winner in the rare slot is a card I'm just ecstatic to see in this set. There will never, ever be enough supply of Cyclonic Rift. If we head on over to EDH Rec, you can see it appears in 93,000 decks of the possible 216,000 decks it could be in. That's a 43% include in blue decks. So there is no question that this is a premium card for Commander. We have almost no supply of this in the market right now, hence the massive price on this card. I'm not sure how much this one is going to dip because, again, similar to Walking Ballista, it's a card that a lot of people want to get their hands on. It's always been valued around the $30 range, but my target for this particular version of Cyclonic Rift at the point where I become an investor is anything south of $20. And a bonus card for the rare slot is Vexing Shusher. I do a weekly finance segment on this channel called This Week in MTG Finance. So if finance is your thing and you're new to this channel, make sure you check that out. It comes out every week on Sunday at midnight Eastern Time. Now, Vexing Shusher is kind of an oddball for this set. It's one of these cards that hasn't had a reprint for a long time. Shadowmoor was really the only printing of this card. It appears as sideboard tech. It appears as sideboard tech in various modern decks, as well as other goblin type decks. And this does get some commander play. Card's always been valued around $20, but it's one of those things that's only sort of a 1 or 2 of in sideboards in most decks. So I think that with all of the supply of Vexing Shusher that's going to enter the market, this should drop right down below the $1 range. Now again, this is going to be a card that's going to take a long time to recover. I don't foresee them reprinting this again anytime soon. It's just not a card that's really in demand, really in any set. So there's no reason for them to keep reprinting Vexing Shusher over and over. I'd be surprised if we see a reprint within the next few years even. So at that point, Vexing Shusher should start to recover as people snap them up for future sideboards for their various modern and commander type decks. Picking this card up below $1 should net you some nice tidy returns if you're willing to kind of just put them in a shoebox and leave them in your closet for a few years. All right, before we get to our top 5 mythics from Double Masters, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our online store. That's right, www.dragonhillgames.com is live. We carry all your favorite board games, role-playing games, fantasy miniatures, and then obviously all the awesome MTG products. Now, do keep in mind if you're outside of Canada, because we are based in Canada, I can't ship any sealed MTG products across any borders. But if you're in Canada, I would love to be able to ship sealed MTG product to you if that's something you're looking for. And outside of Canada, of course, we can ship everything else. Thank you for taking the time to check out our online store. All right, let's look at some of the real goodies from Double Masters. And even though Double Masters is a really expensive set, I actually think Wizards kind of went overboard on the pricing with some of this stuff. We've kind of reached the limit where players are comfortable with paying for a box of something. I've had a lot of people in my store just really kind of sitting on the fence about Double Masters because the price is so high. That said, they did reward us with a bunch of cards that are really expensive that we really wanted to see, and Force of Will unquestionably is one of those cards. Every other printing of Force of Will is north of $100, more like in the $115 to $120 range. So picking this card up for your personal collection, even at today's price, $90, is a pretty good deal. I think that there's a possibility this card could fall as low as $75, and that's kind of the point where I would be picking up a bunch of copies as finances allow for future investment. I think it would recover really nicely from that point, but even picking up copies around the sort of $80 to $90 range for your own personal use for your own decks is a fantastic bargain, considering you were paying, north of $115 before this reprint in Double Masters. So good luck to everybody with your boxes. If you're going to drafts and all kinds of that stuff, hopefully you hit some of these awesome cards that we're going to talk about in the Mythic slot. Moving along to my number 4 pick, we have Batterskull. $12 is actually a reasonable price for this card, considering it normally sits in the $18 to $20 range. A lot of demand for this card, especially in Modern, in various Tron and Control type decks, ends up being a finisher in a lot of Control type decks. Does see some cross-format play as well into things like Legacy and Commander. It's one of those cards that I expect, and my target price on this is around the $8 mark, and if it does hit that price, this card has a lot of room to really double or even possibly triple in price in the future. Coming in at number 3, we have Land Tax. This is kind of a narrow card. It does have huge commander demand. It's always been priced around the $40 mark. In fact, the recent reprint in Battle Bond did almost nothing to affect the price. So picking this up for my target price of $20 or less is a fantastic deal. Doubling Season was one of the first cards spoiled for Double Masters. Makes sense, I guess, considering the name of the set. That said, it really hasn't affected the prices all that much on all the other printings of Doubling Season. They're still sitting around $50, which just tells you exactly how much demand is out there for a card like this. Clearly, this is a commander card. I honestly don't think the price falls too much from this $50 mark that we're currently at. But being an investor between $45 and $50 feels like a pretty good deal to me. Before we get to my number 1 choice in the Mythic slot, I did want to give you Jace the Mind Sculptor as a bonus. Now, clearly this is an obvious pick. I mean, Jace is an iconic card, especially in the modern era of Magic the Gathering. Most of the other copies of Jace are sitting in the sort of $85 to $95 range. So even if you just need to pick one up for your own personal uses, one you've been wanting a Jace for a while, picking one up south of $70 is a fantastic deal. I'm not sure how much Jace drops from here, and there is some room for growth. Obviously, I think that given time, that this copy of Jace will level out and even out with all of the other copies, probably in the $80 to $100 range. So there is a little bit of financial opportunity here, but it's a big outlay throwing out $70 to make $10 or $15 on a card by waiting a couple of years. So not exactly the best financial investment, but if you need one for your own personal uses, this is a great time to be picking one up at south of $70. And my number 1 choice in the Mythic slot is unquestionably Avacyn, Angel of Hope. I have never been able to keep copies of this in my store. It literally has wings. I put one in the case and it just flies away. I've always been able to sell them in the $40 to $50 range. In fact, that's where all of the other copies are sitting, more even closer to $50. So my target on this card is around the $20 to $25 range. Even picking it up at this price, if you need copies for your own personal use, is an absolute steal. But for investment purposes, if this card hits $20, you can look to double your money on this card down the road. All right, I really hope you guys enjoyed having a look at my top 20 picks from Double Masters. If you're a subscriber, you know I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate your support. And if not, now's a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I post at least 2 videos every week. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps me out. All right, bye for now.